Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, heck no. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I'm Frederick Bertley. I'm President and CEO of COSI and the CEO of the National Veterans Memorial Museum. And it's a pleasure, on behalf of myself and the Board of Trustees, to welcome you here to this hallowed space. First of all, a little change in direction. I do not look like Sophia Pfeiffer, the amazing CEO and President of this great organization, CMC. She actually is participating in something called the YALP program, the Young American Leadership Program. And this is where our city partners with 14 other cities in the United States, and we send anywhere from 8 to 9 of the best, brightest, up-and-coming leaders of this community. And so we send 7 to 8 each year. The Columbus Foundation, Doug Kreidler, Alex Fisher help promote this program, and then they go to Harvard Business School where they spend almost a week researching some amazing case studies about everything from business development to entrepreneurship to city planning, you name it, but they're in partnership with 14 other cohorts from other cities. It's a prestigious program, and so it was a unique opportunity for her, and that's why she's there. And one last fun fact, just to let you all know as Columbusites, how great this program is. I heard this from the mayor when I first moved here 8 years ago, and I was like, nah, that's not true. Then I had the pleasure of participating in this program. They teach at Harvard Business School, as their first case study in this elite program, they teach something called the Columbus Partnership and the Columbus Way. It is literally case one in a big binder, and it talks about all the great things the Columbus Partnership and all of you in this room done over decades as a model program for the country. So applaud Harvard Business School for picking that. So here at the National Veterans Memorial Museum, we are here to honor all veterans, elevate their stories, and talk about and promote the power of service for everyone, everywhere. And that's why it's such a nice place to have this discussion and partner with an organization like CMC, where all of you are interested in service in your communities through nonprofits, through for-profits, through whatever enterprise and avenues and verticals you're working in. It's all about serving a greater good. And so with that, we couldn't be happier to be here to host today's very important topic, which is the state of nonprofits. And doing it here in this institution could not be more appropriate. With that, to get into the official forum, I'd like to recognize the amazing people in this room who make this happen, but then the sponsors that help pull off this program. First of all, to the presenting sponsor, the Columbus Foundation. Also, thank you to Bank of America, Benefactor Group, Columbia Gas of Ohio, the Columbus Museum of Art, Kramer & Associates, Huntington Bank, Mallard Consulting, the United Way of Central Ohio. And our presenting sponsor, for those of you on live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch. Ladies and gentlemen, please clap for all these amazing people that make this happen. Couple quick housekeeping. If you have not silenced your phones, please do so. And I know in the tradition in past Columbus Metropolitan Club events, you would have lunches here. We do have lunches for you. There are going to be the box lunches that you're used to, but you pick that out as you exit. We want you to focus on this robust panel and the incredible discussion that they're going to have here. So with that, let's welcome everybody to today's forum. And I would like to introduce someone who needs no introduction, who's going to introduce the esteemed panelists, none other than Dan Sharp from the Columbus Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sharp. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. B, and congratulations to CMC on its bold leadership in changing venues to ensure that we can include more people in today's important conversation. CMC is always relevant, and today's conversation seems hyper-relevant with the release of the Giving USA data just yesterday. While the report encompassed 2024's philanthropic activities, and arguably this year seems to be quite different, the news for 2024 was very good. $592.5 billion went to U.S. charities in 2024. That's a 6.3% increase in current dollars, a new high. and all measured subsectors like education, health, arts, social services, all saw donations increase in current dollars. And that came at a really important time for the sector, as critical aspects of COVID recovery remain. Many community needs have been well documented to be increasing, and this year, funding priority shifts, especially amid governmental dollars, have many organizations scrambling. So navigating the current operating environment and what is yet to come will take all of us. And so I'm pleased by the efforts of everybody in this room, online, certainly on today's panel, for all of the caring and doing that each of you are engaged in. And thinking of the butterfly effect for doing even the smallest things to make waves of positive impact to improve our community. For the Columbus Foundation, that means, for the first time in our 80-plus year history, dipping into organizational reserves to make more funds available for strategic grant-making. And creative responses, continued commitment to mission, and doing the hard and heart work is what this nonprofit sector is built for. While it's not likely that any of us have all of the answers, I do know that today's conversation will provide very valuable insights into the sector, and this panel is so well represented with consummate professionals with truly impressive backgrounds, and collectively, they've seen a lot in their career arc. But I would venture to guess that the current state of the nonprofit sector is presenting some very new scenarios. So it's my great honor to welcome today's panel, beginning with Julie Fletcher, Director of Community Impact with Crane Group. Joe Gottron, President and CEO of Gladden Community House. Denise Robinson, President and CEO of Alvis. Tom Schmid, President and CEO of the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. And I'm also pleased to introduce our host today, the very passionate and affable Michael Corey, the Executive Director of the Human Service Chamber of Central Ohio.
Passionate and affable are very nice euphemisms. Thank you, Dan. I'm used to you calling me much worse. Forgive my appearance, but given the state of funding for nonprofits, I don't have a collared shirt anymore. I'm down to the t-shirt. Let's start today where we're going to end it. I want every nonprofit staffer and leader to stand up and accept the applause of this room. Stand up. That doesn't happen enough, and I'm going to try to change that a little bit today. My name is Michael Corey. I have the tremendous privilege of being with you all today. I want to thank the wonderful team at CMC for having us here. The demand for this conversation, thanks to these panelists and the people that just stood up, is always so high. We were actually supposed to be in Ohio Stadium, but it's too hot to be there. So we had to settle for this wonderful venue. But thank you to the hosts for your hospitality. Thanks to everyone serving water. And there will be lunch when you leave. I know some of you are wondering, you always get wonderful food here. You'll have that as you go. So you have to have rapt attention. You're going to eat up everything that they say. How's that? Okay. So, bad out there for nonprofits. Let's start there. Let's be honest. We are, as you know, every year we do a kind of a survey of the state of the sector. And we're doing it a little later than usual because we're preparing information for a very special presentation we get to make later this year. And we have some preliminary responses. I want to give you one. And we just ask simply, what's the state of the sector right now in your opinion? 58% say it's bad or worse than bad. 42% say it's fair. That's it. I was surprised that we had 42% saying fair. But I'm glad that optimism is there. We're going to have that optimism, but I get to be the anger translator and share some of the negative stuff first, and then we're going to get to the positive stuff and some of the negative stuff too, probably in our conversation up here. Why is the state of the sector perceived to be so tough right now? There are traditional reasons. Demand is still up, resources are down, COVID-era dollars have been exhausted, the city is growing, which is great, but that creates new challenges. The traditional things that we talk about year to year that we're working on here and across the United States. And we're lucky to be in a community that cares so much about this and is trying, but we've always said we got to do more than what we're doing. That remains true. But it's the untraditional stuff. How's that for euphemism? That's creating unique challenges right now, and that's creating that feeling that is so heavy. If you talk to a nonprofit, anybody right now, the first thing you're going to get them to say is, oh, I am tired. I'm tired. I'm tired, and I sit behind a computer sending emails. And I have the most wonderful team that's sitting there, Lindsay, Lauren, Bhumika, Cassie, and Cardella, who's watching from home. We're tired. We're working hard, and we're just doing a fraction of the work that you all are doing, that you all that are standing up are doing. Okay, what are those untraditional challenges? Let's talk about them. Very plainly, the new administration in Washington has made it very clear that nonprofits are in their sights. And they're doing it in several distinct ways that have been rolling out since January 20th of this year. They're attempting still to cut active federal grants to nonprofits. They have largely been slowed in courts or stopped in courts, but those efforts are ongoing. There are anticipated or future federal grant opportunities that aren't showing up, or the eligibility will be drastically different than it has been. Both of those pieces represent billions and billions of dollars. Ask our friends in higher ed. We were applauding Harvard. Harvard is everybody's favorite nonprofit right now. Never thought I'd say that. But they're the test case for this administration of what they can do, trying to pull funding away. The third area, federal agencies of particular importance to nonprofits are being dismantled or stopped altogether. And again, the courts are slowing some of that down, but there's only so much that can be done there. We're talking about the Department of Education, HHS, Health and Human Services, HUD, DOE, and beyond just them shrinking or going away, that affects things operationally, that affects things in terms of funding, and in many cases, they're doing things antithetical to what the agencies are supposed to do. Good luck doing public health when folks aren't vaccinated. It's going to be rough, okay? This is what we're dealing with. The fourth thing, wow, a lot of executive orders of note that agencies are trying to navigate. We're also trying to figure out the executive order trying to banish diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, they're not gonna, but it's having an effect. Our sector here and across the country is diverse, is equitable, is inclusive, but it's a challenge for nonprofits to figure out what to do in this landscape. That's just one sliver of an issue. The fifth area, it's happening as we speak in Washington. Congress is trying to get through a budget, through the reconciliation process that would take away $1 trillion in Medicaid and SNAP. $1 trillion, biggest cuts to both those programs ever. And they're running into some headway, but that's the effort. That's what's happening. That will have an enormous effect, enormous effect. There are several other examples of that in the State House and here. I'm almost done with my negative news here. And the last thing, just federal appropriations, relatively new. They had been resurrected a couple years ago. They were bringing dozens of millions of dollars to our community alone and $10 to $15 million every year to nonprofits in Franklin County. Those are changing drastically, and the amount of money that's going to come to nonprofits through that, we're learning in real time, is shrinking. Okay? That's just one little sliver of an effect. That's the environment that we're in. But hope is not lost, because nonprofits, though they are not superheroes, they have to act like it every day. And we got to help them out. We got to help all these people out that were standing up. But they are still figuring this out together with hope, with passion, with conviction, and with a vision for this community if we fund this work the way it deserves to be funded, if we respond to community needs the way we need to. So with that lovely backdrop, as the pseudo-moderator, now I get to be quiet and you get to hear from the good folks here. And I want to start, we'll go right down the line, introduce yourselves, your organizations, a little bit beyond what we heard out of the gate, and give us your assessment of the state of the sector for your organization, but for what you know of the networks that you're in, the subsector, the people you speak with here and across the United States. We want to hear, candidly, what's the state of the sector right now, and we'll start with you, sir.
Sure. Tom Schmid with the Columbus Zoo and the Wilds and Zambezi Bay and Safari Golf Club. And yeah, I think what I hear a lot, talk to my colleagues about, is just the uncertainty and the instability of the environment right now. Our institution doesn't receive any federal operating support, but we're the beneficiaries of federal grants from IMLS, for example, that help us conserve and sustain our elephant populations. And so knowing that funding source is no longer available, I mean, that's going to have an impact on elephant sustainability and conservation of species. So yeah, I think, that's certainly a challenging environment, but I would say even drilling down to the state and local level, what's happening at the State House, what's happening here in Columbus, a lot of discussion about property tax. We get it. It's going up. But to do away with that, or to do away with levies, or make structural changes to levy programs, allowing budget commissions to reduce millage, for example, even after voters approve a levy, is just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of concern. We're fortunate recipients of significant levy support from Franklin County, and that allows us to keep our ticket pricing and our membership pricing a little bit lower for Franklin County residents, and also provide amazing care for the animals at the zoo and in the wild. So, that becomes in jeopardy in the future. That's a major shift to our operation. So I think it's, not just at the federal, well, you touched on the state level too. I think just the uncertainty, the instability, not really knowing, not seeing a clear path ahead, I think that's causing a lot of stress in not-for-profits throughout our sector and throughout the nation.
Denise.
Good afternoon, everyone. It was telling to see so many people stand up when you said that, so I really appreciate that. I'm Denise Robinson. I'm the president and CEO of Alvis. And what we do is we have 5 lines of services. We've been turning lives around for by 180 degrees. That's one of our mantras. But our 5 lines of services is working with the reentry population, residential, non-residential, very large workforce development program, behavioral health, substance use disorder treatment, trauma-informed care, mental health, working with persons with developmental disabilities that are offenders or are at risk of offending, and then finally our families and our children. State of the sector. I promised myself before I came up here that I was going to let Michael be the negative one.
You're welcome.
Thank you. But it's really hard. It's really hard to relinquish that, because we are all of us are scared. We're scared. We don't know what to do. For me, and I know others in the room, we're really strategic in the way that we do business, and it's hard to be strategic when you don't know what's coming down the road. Strategy usually includes, forecasting, but you can't forecast something that has something that changes every day. It changes every day and sometimes every hour, and so we are. It's just an unstable way to be, and I just feel like, we have to work so much harder than ever just to save people.
A quick point of privilege. If you didn't know, Denise had a plan for a pandemic before there was a pandemic. That's how good of a planner she is. But even the Federal Reserve today can't plan ahead. If they can't do it, how are nonprofits supposed to do it? Joe, up to you.
All right, it's a privilege to be here. Joe Gottron, I'm the president and CEO of the Gladden Community House. For those of you that may not be familiar with us, we're about a mile from here in the heart of Franklinton. Thanks to the vision and the action-oriented Reverend Dr. Washington Gladden back in 1905 and the support of the Jeffrey Company, C.L.A. Jeffrey, Gladden got its start. And it's an absolute privilege to be part of the organization. We have programs that range from preschool to after school to our food pantry that serves 1,000 a month, to our senior programs and our awesome relationship with the Community Shelter Board and a number of other programs. So it's just amazing to go from the last 40 years of my life where I was in the business world, and I've lived through some of the most challenging corporate turnarounds, the one with IBM being the most challenging, to a shift over the last year of living inside of a nonprofit. And it's one thing to be on boards and to be engaged, and I think which is awesome, which I love doing for the last 30-some years. But to be living inside a nonprofit and living our mission and what we do, and to be challenged the way we are in this climate, it's an eye-opener. Last year when I had the privilege of meeting with Janelle Coleman, and we were talking about what it's like to be inside of a nonprofit after being in the business world for 30-some years. And we came up with this analogy of almost like if every person spent 1 year living inside of a nonprofit, no different than like the Peace Corps, this would be a different world. The one thing that hit me quick, and I'll stop on this point, but 4 decades ago, Gladden was funded by the United Way over 80-some%. Today that's 4. So the whole economics of what you need to do to build partnerships and build support is just a lot more energizing, exhausting, whatever you want to say. But I will say this: my whole thought of the word gratitude has gone to different levels now that I'm living inside of a nonprofit, and to have the foundations in this city, the individuals, our board, so many different people that help us. It's just, it's fuel that just drives you to jump out of bed and to do what we do. So the climate's challenging, it's stressful, but it's also pretty energizing and inspiring.
Yeah, I echo that, what you said. Julie Fletcher with Crane Group. I am the Director of Community Impact, and I am absolutely privileged to be sitting in this seat. I don't take this responsibility lightly, and I just want to say thank you, nonprofits, for giving us the opportunity to walk alongside you, because you are indeed, as they have said, doing the heavy lifting. So thank you for that. Crane Group is a 4th-generation family-owned company. We invest in business, people, and good. And some of you may know our beginning as Crane Plastics on the south side. Today, we own and operate a diverse portfolio of companies across the country. Here locally, you may know Able Roof. As Community Director, or Director of Community Impact, I lead our philanthropic giving, our community engagement, and our diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oh, and in terms of state of the nonprofits, I can't say it any better than what has been said here, but sort of what Joe was alluding to, I would just like to add that the business sector also is navigating this chaotic uncertainty right now. We are tightening our belts, right-sizing our staff. We are scenario planning. So we feel you from that regard. a lot of us who have my similar role in the city for other businesses have been on both sides of the table. We are fully committed.
Thank you so much for that, everyone. A brief history lesson, the next question. So nonprofits weren't really funded en masse by the federal government until the 60s with the war on poverty. And that is fundamentally changing in real time. That's one of the infrastructure challenges. That's one of the pieces of uncertainty that's affecting all of us. That's a huge chunk of the economy that's shifting under our feet really fast. So given all the uncertainty we've all talked about that you all, I think, understand, what are you doing to navigate this? How are you getting through it? You have no choice but to make adjustments. What are those adjustments? And let me cue up a few specific things that I think are on people's minds. Are you contemplating, or have you already had to lay folks off? Are you looking at mergers and acquisitions or affiliations? Are you integrating artificial intelligence into your work in some way? What the hell are you trying to do to get through this? We're doing the same thing. It's not just getting rid of the button-down shirts. It's more than that. And let me start this time with Denise, and then we'll go to Joe, and then to you, Tom, and then I have a specific question for you, Julie.
So what I'm doing is I think about, you just talked about my pandemic and my crisis plan, and I do look at this as, it is a crisis. And if we don't look at it that way, then something's wrong with us. And I did have a pandemic plan in our crisis plan, and when COVID happened, I was just like, okay, let's go to our plan and let's go ahead and navigate that. However, what we didn't plan for was the length of the pandemic. And then also, what I learned through that process too is that I have to stop focusing on a crisis. We cannot be in crisis mode all the time. We need to go back to our strategic plan and follow our strategic plan. So February 24th of this year, I pulled my executive team and other team members together, and I said, okay, we've got to update the crisis plan. And in updating the crisis plan, we did a high, medium, low. If this happens, then what happens? If this happens, what happens? And I will tell you, it was actually very telling to see the results of those 3 steps. And I'll just tell you the worst one, the high plan. Out of my $50 million budget, it would be $25 million. It would be, we typically serve 10 to 12,000 individuals a year. It would be 6,000 or 7,000 people. I think about the staff that is associated with that. Maybe 250 staff would have to go away. And when you think about the magnitude of those numbers, it's really, really difficult to think about what we do in nonprofit is take care of people. And now we can't take care of people because of what's going on. So we look at our plan, we look at the crisis plan, but we also continue to look at our strategy of the way that we already have our plan going. And so crisis, yes. Do we stay in it? No.
So in our case at Gladden, when I joined a year ago, at the time, looking at the financials going back to 2022, we were very fortunate to have some PPP dollars. In some ways, the challenge with that is, as the inflationary period continued to seep into operations and so forth, you wake up in 23 and realize that about every program's underwater. So even before we got into some of these more current challenges, I knew that we needed to start looking at every program and making sure that we had plans to get healthy in each program. In addition to an infrastructure, a building that was last updated 30 years ago that also needed a lot of help. So it's kind of been a multi-threaded plan from day one to look at each program and look for an angle to get the board more engaged with us. I just know from my experience in the past, when you're a board member that really wants to engage, you want to seek out opportunities for the board to get more engaged. And so one of the newer committees that we just launched is called our Program and Innovation Effectiveness Committee. And it's going to provide our board members with an opportunity to get even deeper with us, for those that have the time and passion to really help us understand where we might be able to navigate something. So for example, our preschool program, which is clearly, it's incredible with what we do with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. We just got our latest outcome scores, and we're 3x in terms of outcomes for kindergarten readiness compared to the Franklin County average for underserved kindergarten readiness. So we're just doing some amazing things in that program, and I wanted to get the board more engaged with us so they could really understand what's changed over the last couple years from a funding perspective, from a city, county, federal perspective, and also help them better understand why it's just so darn important to invest in 0 to 5. And I could go really long on this one, but 3 months ago, I got an added injection of energy around 0 to 5 when Kent Johnson, the CEO of Highlights for Children, did a post on a Friday talking about his experience when he went to Florida for some meetings and learned about a documentary called No Small Matter. And how many in this room have ever watched that documentary, No Small Matter? If you care about children, if you care about our state, if you care about our country, invest 74 minutes and watch No Small Matter. As a society, we're underinvesting in 0 to 5, and it is absolutely, if we're gonna not be here 10 years from now or 15 years from now and be in an even worse shape, we need to act on and pony up on 0 to 5 and go deeper. So it was a life changer for me. I mean, I saw his post on a Friday afternoon, and Angie and I watched it that night, and it's forever changed what I think every day when I wake up about what we need to do as a society if we're serious about justice, equality, and seeing kids flourish. So back on a track, so we're taking each program, we're going deeper with scenario planning, and we're working harder to do a better job of articulating our programs, articulating the outcomes of our programs, so that when we do go to foundations and supporters to ask for help, we can show that we're making a difference and we're going to make every dollar count in what we're doing.
Thank you, Joe. Tom.
So, yeah, similar to my colleagues here, we do contingency planning, and we're developing a scenario. What would we do if we saw a 20% drop in our funding? I mean, we need to be prepared for things like this. So that's sort of one half of the equation. I think the other half of the equation is coming to the realization that we're going to need to fundraise more than we've ever fundraised in the past, and we're going to need to raise more money than we ever have in the past. And I think about some of the folks who are here today, nationwide, leads that list. If you look at the funding that goes back into this community, we mentioned Janelle Coleman at AEP. I think about Battelle and Huntington Bank, Fifth Third Bank. There's so many of our organizations, and it's the same organizations that you see everywhere in the various sectors, and we're so thankful for what they do. But there's lots of other companies that aren't stepping up to the same extent that these folks are. And I think about some of the new companies coming in, AWS, Intel, Anduril. I think when these companies are coming in and they're receiving incentives to move workforce and invest millions and in some cases billions of dollars in our community, creating that expectation that if you're going to be in Central Ohio, you need to be in the community, and that means supporting these organizations that are so fundamental to our way of life and our health and safety. And so I've had discussions with Kenny McDonald about that somehow that needs to become part of the economic development narrative, that to be a successful, thriving company in Columbus means giving back. And I think that's a message that we all need to repeat over and over again.
I've only got time to ask one more question before we pass it to all of you and to Mr. Buchanan Jr. So forgive me, Julie, for skipping you on that one. But let's try to answer this one before we move to the brilliant questions from the audience. And we'll start with you, Joe, this time, and then go to Julie, and then Tom, and then to Denise. And the question is, we know there's also wonderful stuff happening that you're doing, that the people in this room are doing, and that is part of your and our collective vision for this community if we invest properly in the people of this community and the nonprofits that are making it run, no matter the work that the nonprofit is doing, no matter the people that they're serving, no matter the zip code in which they're operating. Tell us a little bit about the good stuff that's going on, and some of you have done that already, good job, and how that bakes into a vision of this community of how we can come together and figure this out despite the enormous turbulence and uncertainty that's around us.
I took too much time last time, so I better go shorter here. But there's just so many good things happening, and it's so inspiring. I think right now we have Lawrence Funderburk and his wife Manya working with our youth kids, teaching them financial management skills, financial management acumen, right? The 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And what's really awesome about that is you take someone like Lawrence, who grew up in the Hilltop, Franklinton area, to see him back in the hallways of Gladden, and not only teaching kids about money and money management, but raising the bar. The first day didn't go well. His expectations were a lot higher than what some of these kids were ready for. And then round two went really, really well, right? So it's just cool to see people like you in the room and others who are willing to give up your time and talents and treasures to come in and make a difference at Gladden and every other nonprofit around. It's so darn inspiring, and I just thank you for what you do, and thank you for the support, because it inspires all of us.
I would say our giving pillars are the arts, education, health and human services, and neighborhood and community. And I could give you examples of so much good that is happening in each one of those areas. That's the thing that fuels me to do this job. I will say things collectively that are happening in our city, like the Community Information Exchange, CIE, where we're going to make services available to our residents as a one-stop shop. That technical infrastructure that is in the works right now will be critical for data and just helping people achieve the equitable prosperity they deserve.
Yeah, so thinking about the path forward, and I think what's positive that could come out of some of this, and certainly innovation will, and I think about, so I asked Michael earlier, how many not-for-profits are there in Central Ohio? Literally thousands and thousands of not-for-profits. And is this an opportunity for institutions with like-minded values and a purpose to consider forming stronger partnerships or even merging? I think about when the Wilds and the zoo merged 25, 30 years ago. Both institutions now are stronger as a result of that merger. For the Wilds team, having corporate assistance with finance and HR and Marcom and all these different divisions, so that they don't have to repeat those services there. They can really focus on their mission work, restoration ecology, holding assurance populations of endangered or extinct species, all that benefit the zoo and other zoos around the country. So really taking this opportunity to look to see if there are other organizations that we can partner with, I think could be potentially a positive that comes out of this challenging situation.
What I would say to this is that when you asked a question, I had a big smile on my face. I smiled immediately because there are some good things happening. There's some really good things with outcomes, not just for Alvis, but for all the nonprofits. Collaboration. It has amped up. It's amped way up, and it needs to. Just in my organization, I'm always looking at data. I'm kind of a data freak, but 79% of everyone that successfully goes through one of my programs is not returning to the criminal justice system, and that is after 3 years of measurement, not after 1 year. Thank you. And I'm very proud of that, and I'm very happy about that. But also, I look at our moms and our kids are matriculating better in school than most. And that's because of the nonprofits, I think, because they're going through programs. But the one thing that I would definitely say is like I said, talked about our collaborations. I think it's really, really important to do that. Alvis has done 7 mergers and acquisitions, and in that time, I mean, since January, when everything blew up, I've been asked over and over again about, can we merge? Can you acquire, that kind of thing. But one of the things we have to keep in mind is that if you're struggling financially, it's kind of hard for someone else to take it on. But number 2 is we got to keep your passion for your organization. It has to be present. We don't want that to go away. Those 7 mergers and acquisitions, we kept their names because it's important, because you've put so much into it. But there's joy. There's joy and there's hope. We have a lot of hope.
Damn good way to end, and pass it off to you, Mr. Buchanan.
Michael, thank you so much. Thank you so much to today's panelists for an inspiring conversation. If you have a question for today's panelists, please do join us here at the microphone. If you're watching online through the live stream, please type your question into the chat. We'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. Great questions at CMC always have 2 things in common. They can be asked in just a sentence or 2. And what punctuation mark does a question end with? They end with a question mark. Yes, they do. Here we go.
Thanks, Doug. My name is Brian Urbanski. I'm with the Aubrey Affordable Housing Foundation, and affordable housing is absolutely at a crisis level, and we provide housing to members of vulnerable populations, and we're very proud, Denise, to support your folks and coming home, because we are reentry friendly. I really like what you had to say when you were talking about moving from crisis mode into strategic planning mode. One of the biggest challenges of our reentry population is in finding stable housing. And I'd like to hear any thoughts that you have in your strategic plan on how you might be able to help these folks transitioning out into the real world, out of Alvis, to have that housing support.
Thank you for that question. It's been hard. Extremely hard lately. However, what we've done internally in our organization is we have started doing master leases of large apartments. And we turn them into recovery housing so people can be there, but they can be there not just for a month or 2 or for 3 or 4 months like in our halfway houses, but it can be longer term. And then there's the ability to reunite with their families. Their families can come and visit. So we've been doing master leases. Is that an answer to it? No, but it's something. We have to do something because it's really hard. We've done a lot of talking with developers, talking with landlords to really change the narrative. One of the things people tend to forget that everyone that comes through, let's say our programs or reentry, they have completed their time. They're done with prison. They would just be released if they didn't come to us. And they're people. They're family members of people in this room. They are people. They're first. And so we have to change the narrative, and we've worked really hard with landlords to change that narrative.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Laura McDonald, principal and founder at Benefactor Group. Speaking of philanthropy, of that $592 billion that Dan cited earlier, over 80% came from individual donors. And yet in Columbus, we also have a very generous corporate giving community. One of the provisions in the Senate version of the tax bill will not allow corporations to deduct charitable giving until it reaches 1% of corporate pre-tax profits. And in America, the average is 0.92% of corporate pre-tax profits. So I'm wondering, Julie, have you given any thought to how the Crane Group might respond to that, and perhaps Tom and others, as you talked about the generous corporate support that you get, if you're giving any thoughts to some innovative strategies?
Thank you for that question. Specifically, out loud, no, we have not talked about that yet. But what I will tell you is that the commitment will stay in place. What that looks like yet, I'm not sure, but we set our philanthropic number at the beginning of the year, our budget based on the prior year. and then it remains the same. So more to come on that, but I can just tell you from the Crane commitment, will stay strong.
Thank you all so much. Have you seen changes in how donors or funders define impact?
Yeah, I guess I'll start on that one, and I think yes, generally speaking, we're certainly seeing donors that want to understand and see the results of the funding they make, and I think that's leading to more restricted giving instead of just unrestricted giving. Certainly more restricted giving and restricting toward particular programs, conservation, education, a certain capital project, less support for general operating. And so I think that follows a trend that we've actually seen probably for the last 5 or 10 years, but I think it's becoming more intentional now. I mean, folks really want to see how that specific donation they're making is impacting your institution. So.
Most of our donors are expecting, as well they should, is what is the outcome? Just like you said, what's the impact? And I love that. I love being able to provide data and showing that their dollars really matter. I don't know where we would be without our partners. I just don't know where we'd be. So yeah, I think it's the data and the outcomes.
Okay. I would just say yes, it's outcomes, and at Crane, we look at how is this work impacting what population, et cetera. But also, it's very helpful when we have someone on that board, because we have so many asks that come our way. We have a certain budget, so it's very helpful just to know that you have inside eyes. It is. And also then the outcomes.
Yeah, one of the big changes that's happened when 2020 and 2021 were going on and we were dealing with the pandemic, a lot of flexible giving really surged, and that was incredibly helpful. A lot of general dollars to nonprofits, and that has retreated dramatically to the pre-COVID kind of giving, and that's creating challenges right now because not everybody understands that this is indeed a crisis, and nonprofits are trying to navigate that, but that's tough. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brad Griffith from Buckeye Innovation. I'm also board chair right now for City Year Columbus. I'm interested, Michael brought up the idea of AI. Is that a component? I'm interested in what role technology is playing right now and helping you to be more efficient, or maybe some comments on technology needs that nonprofits have. I see some tech folks in the audience who are eager to help out with nonprofits.
Sure, I guess I'll start. So one of the aspects of the animal care program at the zoo is focusing on what we call animal well-being. So beyond just feeding the animals, making sure they have good veterinary care, trying to answer that elusive question, is this animal happy in this habitat? And so we do observations for every animal at the zoo, and we have over 6,000 animals. So at least once a year, every animal gets a thorough animal observation just focused on that animal well-being. But that's once a year, and oftentimes it's more. But we're utilizing now, working with a company called Owl AI, to have a whole series of cameras that monitor animal habitats throughout the zoo, and having the AI learning model begin to understand behaviors of animals and noting stereotypical behavior, head bobbing, things like that, quantifying this and doing this continuously. So essentially we can create an AI version of animal well-being observation that's not one animal once a year, it's every animal all the time. And so we think that's going to have a transformational impact on our animal well-being program.
Compete with that, rest of the panel.
I will. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I will say that just yesterday, I reviewed our final draft of our AI policies, because we are looking to using a lot of AI, especially in surveillance around our properties, as well as inside of our properties, and also kind of not like the animals or the zoo, but it's also measuring behaviors of the folks that we deal with.
You are amazing.
Yeah, I'll just say we are looking at it with our grant management platform, just considering it, not in the way that it would help us necessarily make decisions, but just in the tracking and reporting piece of it.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes left. We'll take a final question. Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric Krolak with the Center for Employment Studies. This is a great forum on nonprofits, and I very much appreciate the attention being given. But I'm wondering what your advice might be to for-profit companies to make your jobs easier. Now, of course, writing a check, we all know that. But what else? Maybe in terms of wages, in terms of employment policies, benefits, scheduling? Is there something else that businesses should be looking inside now to make your jobs a little bit easier?
Sure, I'll start. So yeah, obviously you mentioned funding. I know we've talked a lot about that, but I think the other aspect that is so important for us is the immense talent that organizations provide to not-for-profits in terms of board service and committee service and bringing teams out to volunteer. I mean, I know at the zoo we're very fortunate to have so many folks that are willing to come out and give their, not just their treasure, but their time and their talent. And I think for companies, encouraging your employees to get involved in not-for-profits, and not everyone can serve on a board, but there are other ways to help that not-for-profit. So aligning the individual's passion with a need in the community, I think, is a wonderful way that companies can give back and really help this sector prosper.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I mean, we're trying to do a better job of looking at a skills matrix and really making sure we understand the skills, passion of board members, and perhaps ways to get some others involved in committees that aren't on the board yet, and so forth. And it's just there's so much talent out there, and there's so many needs. What I quickly learned with Gladden is we're large enough to be really complex, but we're too small to afford a full staff. So we welcome the additional help and expertise in a number of ways, and would love to have it.
Yeah, I would just say yes. Even going into the schools and sharing your what you do for a living, sharing that with our young people. We, in partnership with Huntington, are doing Ron Clark Academy for World Language Middle School, and we have plans in the fall to have our IT people go in, our attorneys, our tax people, and just share what they do, maybe tutor, just surround our young people. I really felt the 0 to 5 too that you were talking about. There's so much we can do.
I have an answer to that one too. That could take a while, Eric, but I'll be succinct. We need your advocacy in Washington and Columbus. I should probably stop on an applause line, but that's the most valuable thing you can do right now. That's the most valuable thing. There is a transformational change in funding happening, but it's not a sure thing. We can stop it. We can't do it without you. And I want to thank Jeff Polosovsky from the Columbus Partnership, who's somewhere in here, for being such a great champion and partner in the local business community for nonprofits. Where are you, Jeff? There. With that, it's been a tremendous honor being up here with the four of you and with all of you. Can we thank all the nonprofit staff and employees that are here one more time? And to another of my bosses, Dr. Frederick Bertley, I'll hand it off to you.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As we get to the close of the program, just again wanted to recap some really cool highlights. One, this is a great community. The commitment of the nonprofit leaders and their team members, as well as the commitment of the community to support them, is unbelievable. And I love where you landed, Mr. Corey, this idea of Columbus to the capital. Let's connect those series of cities leading up to the capital, because the money does flow from there, and with enough conviction and enough support, we can hopefully turn that ship a little bit. But I'm very encouraged as a person who has the privilege of working with so many of you in the audience and working at two important nonprofits that are part of that larger nonprofit landscape. You know, we are really lucky in the city of Columbus to have this, to be able to come together in this ways. I've had the privilege of living in different cities, and this doesn't happen too often. So kudos, again, as was mentioned, to all of you for being here, understanding why this conversation is important and why the bridges we build here will help us cross any impasse that we have in the future. So round of applause to all of you all. Thank you so much. Again, to the housekeeping, want to thank the presenting sponsor, Columbus Foundation. Also want to thank Bank of America, Benefactor Group, Columbus Gas of Ohio, the Columbus Museum of Art, Kramer & Associates, Huntington Bank, Mallard Consulting, and the United Way of Central Ohio, and of course, our sponsors for the live stream, the Center of Human Kindness and Columbus Foundation, and the Columbus Dispatch. Thank you very much for that support. I also want to thank the incredible team and staff at the National Veterans Memorial Museum. This is a hallowed space. They've done an incredible job putting the space together for all of us today and hosting all of us. Thank you for that. And then finally, to our esteemed panelists, Julie Fletcher, Joe Gottron, Denise Robinson, Tom Schmid, and of course our host, Michael Corey. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and making this an important conversation. There will be no forum next week as we break for the holiday, so please make plans to join us back at the Ellis on July 9th for Bold Threads, Big Dreams, the fashion innovation shaping Columbus's style scene, featuring none other than Yogi Terrell and a fantastic panel. Do not miss that. That is at the Ellis. And as you get ready to enjoy the rest of your day, please again pick up a box lunch. This is part of an experimentation at Columbus that CMC is doing to try to figure out what's the best form. Do we keep the tables and have the lunches at the tables? Do we have the lunches at the end? So feel free to provide feedback as you see fit. With that, thank you all for being here. Thank you for making this the greatest city I've had the pleasure of moving my whole family and living in and partnering with all of you. And with that, have a great afternoon, another great CMC forum. Thank you all.